Hey guys, it's Devin at Cedar Hills Homestead. We've had some questions on the channel about how we protect things and what we do to keep predators away and heaven forbid people. But anyway, I thought I'd come on today and talk about what we had and what you need. And I've seen so many videos on YouTube of the 5 guns you need, the 10 guns you need, the 3 guns you need, and I'm thinking that somebody that is just starting out on their own out in the wilderness, you don't want an expensive set of guns. You want something that's going to do it all. And before the caliber junkies come after me, I've got several different calibers. I've reloaded for years. I know ballistics pretty well, but we're talking about entry-level stuff that people want to move out in the woods with. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get into it. You want something that does it all, something that works in all kinds of different conditions, something that can put up with a little neglect, a lot of neglect, doesn't really matter, but something that is easy to work with and simple. Okay, so a lot of guns come to mind, but a pump action shotgun is something that everybody can learn to use, and it's pretty natural when you pick one up to know what to do with it. And if it's not, it's pretty simple to get into one cheap and learn it pretty quick. So today, we're going to talk about the 870. Now, there's a lot of people that say Mossberg's better, Benelli's better, blah, blah, blah. I've shot them all, wore some out, and I always come back to my 870s. Was my Christmas present after my 13th birthday from my grandpa and my dad. Okay, this is a youth model. Now the youth model is a lot smaller than this one. Okay, you can kind of see the size difference in these. And this is going to be a lot better for a smaller framed person, such as a lady or a smaller guy that's moving out to the country.
Easier.
This one's a lot easier to handle. It's a lot smaller. So, it's going to kick a little more, but that's negligible. That's something that you're not even going to notice after a few times of shooting it. But, as far as simple goes and robust, this is about as good as it gets. Now, as far as using this, what you can use it for, you can use this from birds, squirrels, and rabbits, all the way to deer and elk and bear. Okay? Now, again, before the caliber junkies get after me, yes, you can use a 20 gauge slug for a bear. There's a lot of people in Alaska that do it. And actually, the world's largest Kodiak was taken with a 22 LR. Okay, so don't go there with me. But anyway, as far as protection goes, a 20 gauge is plenty for protection against bears and things, because the slugs that you're looking at, you can still buy a 1 ounce slug in both a 12 and a 20. And people are going to say you need 12 gauge minimum for defense, and that's just not true. That is not true. The difference is so negligible between the two of them that it's not even a difference in practical uses. It's just not. There's no way. I can get into that in a later video and do the things that I've done that will show you, like ballistics, gel, water jugs, anything you want to do. I've made gel before. I've had gel fill. I've had in organ filled dummies. I've done a lot of things with shotguns, but a 20 gauge for defense is excellent. Now, when I say birds to bears, I don't mean one shell is good for all of it. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. If you guys want to take a look at it, but there's a big difference here, okay? This is something that's very important when you get a shotgun and you're learning how to use it. And this covers all of your bases. Okay, you got birds down here at the bottom. You got a penny for size comparison. You got your buckshot. Now, there's a difference in the buckshot because they don't sell double-aught buck for a 20 gauge. This is the 20 gauge side, and this is the 12 gauge side, okay? So this is number 3 buck. You can get number 2 buck, which is a size bigger than this, but this, if you look at this, this is a size bigger than the 22 shell. And if you send 14 or 15 of these at a bear, it's not going to live very long. Okay, now this isn't my ideal defense round for a bear. This is the slug. Okay, the slug is what you want to send after a bear, no doubt. But that's in different states. You got different laws, and I can't speak for your state or anything like that. But here we try to haze the bear first, and at 50 yards, this small stuff right here, this is 7.5. Okay, this is $5 at Walmart. And you can go to Walmart, any Walmart in the nation almost. If it has a sporting goods section, it has number 8, 20 gauge, 2 3/4. Okay, now you can shoot a bear with this, and it will not go through it after 60 yards. Okay, so this is how you haze. Okay, now if he's still not leaving, still getting a little bit more aggressive, and you've done your due diligence to try to get him away, you can use the buckshot to try a little harder. It's going to be really persuasive, and it might hurt him bad enough that he goes away and dies somewhere else. Okay, this is going to kill your bear. This is going to kill your bear for sure. But also, this is where your versatility comes from birds to bear. Okay, now you got deer, and you probably could kill an elk with a 20 gauge shell. I haven't tried it. I don't know anybody that has, because there's better suited options for that. But we're talking about entry level shotgun stuff. Okay, there's been many a deer taken with a slug, with a 20 gauge slug, even 410 slugs, but that's beside the point. But as far as round availability, you want to stick with a 20 gauge or a 12. Now, both are good, don't get me wrong, but an entry-level shotgun should be something that's easy on the shoulder and easy for somebody to learn with repeatedly. Okay, you don't want to get something that you can only shoot 2 or 3 times and then you got to take a break. You want to get something that you can keep shooting and get good with. Okay, now when I say good, I mean I want to be able to put this slug in the same hole at 50 yards. That sounds hard, but it's not near as hard as you think it is. Now when I say put a slug in the same hole at 50 yards, you're not going to be able to do that with a lot of smooth bore stuff. Okay, now there's a choke video that we could get into later. There's smooth bore versus rifled and stuff like that. But this is a rifled barrel. Okay, see, it's got iron sights on it. It's got a little bit of different sights. It's got a 3-dot iron sight on it that is going to allow you to put shot after shot in very close to the same spot. Okay, now you're going to have to try some different loads and see what different shotguns take different loads and how they react to that, because there's so many different variations out there. You really got to find what will shoot right in your gun. And it might not take much. It might only take a few different shots and a few different boxes, but you'll figure it out. You'll get it. You'll see which ones are easier to shoot and which ones group tighter as you go. But I highly recommend, after you buy the shotgun for under $500, that you go get a rifled barrel for under $200. Okay? And that might sound like a lot, but I have had this shotgun since I was 13. I've killed many a deer with it. I've killed many a birds with it, rabbits, squirrels. I've done a lot with this shotgun, and it is still, well, it's not in excellent shape by any means, because it is used. You can see a lot of the nicks and the wear marks on it, stuff like that. But that character right there is going to give you the memories of that shotgun, and you will have that for a very long time. Okay, this is something that will stay with you. And the versatility of this, now this is a 20 gauge youth model, but just to give you an idea of the versatility that you can take that exact gun, you can turn that into something like this. As your experience progresses, you can take that exact gun, that woodstock gun, and you can turn it into something like this. You can put a red dot on it, you can put a side saddle on it, you can put a nice rail on it, you can put a flashlight on it. Every part about this is made for that. Okay, so you got so much versatility here. So I've got a few shotguns. I don't have a lot, but I've got a few. And the reason I have a few is because each one of them fills a different role. Okay, I got my semi-auto loaders. I got all my pump guns. I love pump guns. I got some old pump guns that probably wouldn't want to use in a normal situation, but they're fun to get out every now and then to play with and just shoot them and knock the dust off of them, and then you clean them up and you put them back. But each one of these fills a different role, and this kind of goes from this extreme to this extreme. Okay, you got the two different ends of the spectrum here. But either way, shotgun is the most versatile gun you'll ever have. Okay, now there's also been some questions about how to load a shotgun to basically haze and then warn and then protect. Okay, so there's law enforcement does this too, and they do it. I'm sure they did a little bit different, and they've got a longer tube on here so they can hold more. But basically what you want to do is you want to load the smallest of the shot first. Okay, that's going to be on the bottom. That's going to be your hazing shot. You shoot at them, and it's going to sting them real good. Then your next one, which is going to be in the middle, that's going to be your warning shot. Like, hey, I can hurt you. Okay, you need to leave. And then the rest of them need to be lethal. You got your hazing shot, which is bird shot, small shot. You got your warning shot, which is buckshot. And then you got your 3 slugs. Okay, most shotguns hold 5 and 1, or 4 and 1. 4 being in the mag tube, and then 1 in the chamber. Now, the spread of a shotgun is another thing you want to talk about. You want to pattern your gun. You want to make sure that you know how far that spread's going to be when you're at a certain distance, okay? So, if you have, say, a coyote or a fox or something on one of your chickens, and it's just tearing it to pieces, but it's only tore feathers out and your chicken's still out, you don't want to shoot that coyote or fox with a shot shell, because you're probably going to hit your chicken too, unless you're at the right distance. Now, you take a piece of cardboard or something that's big enough, and you stand about 10 yards and you shoot it. You stand 20 yards and shoot it out to about 50 yards probably, and you shoot it to pattern your gun. You want to see where you're safe to shoot if something's real close together, close to your animal. And that's really important with a shotgun. Now, there's a pretty big question about how to keep it away from kids and how to be safe with it around kids and how you keep it loaded with kids around and stuff like that. Well, there is no one answer to this because everybody's kids are different. Okay, I was raised a certain way. My cousin was raised a different way. All my friends were raised a different way. It does not matter. And once you get toddlers, there's no such thing as out of reach. Okay, there's only situational awareness. Saying there's no such thing as out of reach is me saying I know what I did in the mornings before everybody else in the house was up. I know what I did, okay? So there is no definitive answer here except situational awareness. Where is your gun? Where is your kid? Is it quiet in your house? That's all the stuff you should know absolutely all the time. No exceptions. You know your gun's loaded. You know where it's at. Now where's your kid? Okay. Now I understand that people can't stay with their kids 24/7. They can't be there. You got something outside. You got to run and get the mail. You got to do something. Trigger locks. Trigger locks are pretty golden. And you can take that key and you can hide that thing in plain sight. Okay. Somewhere different than where your gun is at. And you can hang that gun anywhere and it will be safe. These companies have too much writing on their own trigger locks and their own name to sell something faulty like that. That's a huge lawsuit waiting to happen. So there's a lot of faith that you can put into trigger locks. Now, 100%, no, I don't trust anything 100% except myself. But situational awareness, knowing where your stuff's at, knowing how it's accessible, knowing where your kids are at, that's pretty golden. Okay, so putting it over a door where they can't reach it, that ain't gonna work. We got some over doors, we got some over windows, we got some leaned in corners. You know, it's all subjective. But just know your kids, and then when the time's right, you teach them about it, because curiosity is what gets them into things that they shouldn't be into. Okay, so if you teach them about it, then they won't be curious about it, and they will know what can happen and how bad it can affect somebody. Okay, so just be careful and keep that in mind. Your situational awareness is going to be worth more than any trigger lock or safety that you can think of. Getting back to the original point of this video, this is an entry-level shotgun instructional. Okay, this isn't something that is going to take you down the road 30 years as your skills develop and things like that. And this is just to help you get into a budget shotgun that is going to last a long time. Now, I'm not paid by Mossberg or Remington or anything like that. And as before you say, all the gun critics say anything, I've got 1014s, I've got M4s, I've got the 1301s, I've got it. Okay, been there, done that, got them. I always come full circle back to an 870. I've had 500s. 500s are good. Now, this isn't going to make a lot of sense to a lot of you, but just trust the process. When you go to the store, somebody's going to try to tell you, you're going to say, I'd like to get a shotgun today. And they're going to try to upsell you, because most gun stores are paid commission. They're going to try to upsell you on something that this has got some bells and whistles on it. This has got all the blah, blah. You don't have to pump this. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. Don't buy it. Okay? Mossberg 500 or Remington 870. Okay? Those are the two that everybody circles back to. Nobody can say anything negative about either one of them, except that they don't like the other brand because of this, or they don't like that brand because of this. Okay? Those are the two most solid shotguns in the world. Nobody can argue with that. And if you can, drop it in the comments. I'll be happy to argue with you. But at any rate, you're going to get something plain, okay? You're going to get something plain like this. This is a 20 gauge 870. Now, they're going to try to tell you that you need a 12 gauge for defense, and I would hope I covered it enough by now, but a 20 gauge, if somebody points a 20 gauge at you, that's the biggest 20 gauge they've ever seen in their life. Same with a 22. It's the biggest 22 they've ever seen in their life, and they don't want to be on that end of it. This is plenty. 20 gauge is plenty. I can argue that point all day, because I've been there and done that. I've had several of them. I've got 12 gauges too. Like I said, 10, 14, M4, blah, blah. But get something simple. Learn how to use it. It should be under $500. If it's not, you need to go somewhere else. I don't think I gave over $4 for any of my 870s, okay? I've got Wingmasters and stuff like that that cost a little more. They're up there in the $800-900 range, but that's not what you're going after. You're going for a simple 870 or a simple Mossberg 500. Okay, some of them even sell package deals with barrels. That's a good deal. You'll have everything you need right there. All right, so going back to the warning shot and the way you load it, the pattern that you load your shells with, there's situations where you don't want a warning shot, and that being home defense and self-defense, and I can't really get into a whole lot of that without opening up a lot of loose ends when it comes to legality and things that you should do. But one thing you want to make sure you don't do is shoot through walls when you've got kids in the other room. But the way to eliminate that is something you need to do as a parent anyway. It's kind of your responsibilities. You need to go get all of your family, put them somewhere safe where you know you're not going to shoot through a wall, because there's no good way to clear a house and go through that without going through a wall and potentially hurting somebody. But you've got seconds. This is something that is so open-ended that I hate to even touch on it, because it's really hard to get all the information into a short time, okay? And there's no way that I can get that into this video. This is an entry-level shotgun video. This is teaching you the basics and what to go get, Okay, now me and my friends have had house clearing parties where we go down to the empty trailer that's down on our property. We set up targets in different locations and we go through, time each other. We have a blast with it. Put on our Haley strategic stuff, our helmets, night vision, backpacks, just full kit. Run through this stuff with our 1301s or M4s, blah blah. There's a whole other world to that I can't really touch in this video, but going back to that, you need to have situational awareness of where everything is in your house, what directions you can shoot. If you got a hallway, post up at the end of that hallway, and whatever is in that house that's not supposed to be there, as soon as it crosses that corner, you remove a piece of that entity and you put it on the wall behind it. Okay, that's all I can really put into that as far as that goes. So, situational awareness, self-awareness, knowing where your kids are. Don't shoot through a wall that your kid's behind. And if you do have that hazing shell loaded first, then it's a simple rack it out and load your next shot. It's not a situation where you got to unload your gun and then put everything back into it. And I actually have a shell sitting next to the gun that is a lethal shell, that if that situation happens, which I've got several shotguns, and this is the way I used to do it before I had several shotguns, but when it comes to loading that shell, that, and you've only got one, have a lethal shell sitting there so that when you pump it and knock that less lethal shell out, that birdshot shell, your warning shell, when you knock that out, you can put one in the chamber, your next one, which is a lethal shell, and then you just shove the next one in the bottom of your gun, and you've got an all lethal load. You don't have to worry about hitting somebody. I know a guy that shot a guy, long story, down on the river, shot him with a 20 gauge shell with birdshot. The guy lived through it. He was paralyzed, but he lived through it. Had all kinds of stuff wrong with his stomach, but the guy lived, okay, and he could testify. But at any rate, you don't use bird. You use the right load for the right job. Okay, that's why a shotgun is so versatile. You just use the right load all the time for the right job. There will be no, I hate to say it like this, but there will be no loose ends as far as tracking an animal or wounding an animal or wounding one of your animals or anything like that. So be careful what load you pick. It'll have a picture of it right on the box. Okay, shotgun shells are notoriously easy to pick because they have a picture of what they're for, and they'll even say what they're for on the box. But when I had one shotgun, that's what I used to do, is keep one shell that was lethal right next to it, so I could get rid of that warning shot, throw another one in the bottom, and be done. Don't shoot through walls. Don't shoot through walls, be careful. And slugs will go through a person, an animal, and through a wall behind it, and end up in your refrigerator in a mayonnaise jar. Okay, that you gotta be careful with stuff like that, and you gotta know your limitations, but most importantly, know where everybody's at. Okay, now I keep a shotgun that's got nothing but home defense stuff in it, and this is just all lethal all the time, no questions asked. Whatever's in front of me, whether it's a T-Rex or a dinosaur, some kind of a bear, or somebody with another one of these. Now, a lot of people can't say this. They say it ignorantly, or they say it in a different way than I do. But I would bet my life on my skills to protect myself and my family. And anytime you have to grab one of these, that's what you're doing. Okay? So, I dressed one up. Okay, this isn't my main one. This is one I like. But this is just one out of a corner that I grabbed in the house when I was going to do this video. So be ready to be able to use it. Know what you're doing with it. Know what's going to happen behind your gun or behind the target, because it will go through it. And just be careful. Okay, now why should you listen to me? Why should you care? Since I was 13, actually a little bit younger than that, but we're talking about shotguns. So since I was 13, with this one, my very first shotgun, I have killed deer, squirrels, rabbits, birds, ducks, doves. I've shot many of jugs, many of pumpkins, watermelons, fruit, gel when I got better at it. I've had scopes on shotguns. That's not something I'd recommend. It's not really necessary. But I have done things with shotguns without parental supervision that I should not have done. But I've learned a lot through that. Okay. And since we moved to Montana, I haven't bought meat from the grocery store. Okay, I've killed bears, I've killed deer, elk, ducks, pheasants, squirrels, rabbits, anything that was in season that was on that general hunting license, I've killed it, okay? I have dressed a lot of animals. I've cleaned a lot of animals. I've seen the internal carnage that these shotgun shells can and do cause. Okay, there's a lot of research that goes into ballistics, and that's a whole other video if anybody wants to know about that and the different high caliber rifles that I use to hunt with and things. But as far as shotgun goes, there is nothing these things can't do to protect you. I mean, I wouldn't take it on an elk hunt. That wouldn't be my first thing that I grab out of the safe, but being the only thing that I had, I would do it. I would. Now, granted, I would have a specialty bullet for it. I would have like a Sabo slug, something that was a little bit more high dollar, that has a copper jacket around it, something like this, that has it's got a tip on it for ballistic purposes, aerodynamic purposes. Now the back of it doesn't have a boat tail or anything like that, so it's not a distance bullet by any means, but that Sabo right there will hold together and penetrate an elk deep enough. But again, we're talking about entry-level shotgun stuff. You're not going to go out and hunt an elk your first year. You know, you're probably going to start with something like deer that's easy, and elk are pretty hard to hunt. So keep that in mind, that we're really talking about entry-level stuff, and it will create so much chaos and mayhem in a rib cage that there is no question that a 20 gauge will do it. Now everybody's asking about the dark, because most predators are out after dark and most defense situations take place after dark, and yes, they do. Every one of them that we've had has been real late at night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to barely dusk in the morning, or just dark, right? So go get you a spotlight. Something easy, something cheap, but make sure it has a base. You can stand this thing up, you can click it on with a trigger. It's something quick and easy. You set it in your window, you shine it at wherever the noise came from, and that whole area is going to be lit up, right? So you don't have to guess where anything's at. And then you've got your light. You know, you got your light, and then you grab your gun, you stick it out the window, and you take care of business. But if you want something a little more streamlined without spending a lot of money, now I say that as I grab this gun, but at any rate, this piece right here is available 90% of the online stores that you go to. That's simple, cheap. It clamps on 2 screws, and it clamps on, and you put 1 screw in this rail and it clamps on. They have these available for 20 and 12 gauge. They're everywhere. You ask somebody, how can I put a flashlight on the end of this? And they can probably tell you at the store. They say, hey, well, you need this little clamp. And that little clamp goes on just like that. I mean, I don't know if you can see that very well, but pretty simple, right? Then you get you a flashlight that's rated for a gun. Don't put a mag light on it, I'll blow them to pieces. You get you a flashlight that's rated for a gun, and then you clamp it right on the side of it, okay? Now, there's a lot of weapon lights. There's a lot. Don't let anybody tell you that you have to buy the most expensive one. And I'm going to get a lot of Surefire hate on this, but I have broke Surefire lights on a 12 gauge. And I broke Streamlight too. I broke a lot of lights. But this right here, this is the HLX2. It's rechargeable. That is the main reason that I bought this. Okay, $148. I know that seems like a lot, but it's good to have a good light that's bright, especially at night. The rechargeable option is just amazing for me, because I get tired of buying the CR123 batteries, and they just suck. It sucks buying all the batteries. And then you take your gun out and you go for a 20-minute hike around the property line to make sure that everything's good. and you don't know if your batteries are, and the Surefire batteries, they're good, but you get about 30 minutes, maybe 90 minutes runtime out of the Scouts and stuff like that, but it's not worth it, okay? These hold up just fine. It's rechargeable. I've got as much as 2 hours out of a single charge on these, which is great with how many lumens it is. And you don't need the best of everything. Now, I've got guns with the best of everything on it. PEC 15s, the Surefires, the Scouts, the Mod Lights. I've got that stuff. I've got Mark 18s, Mark 12s, Mark 11s. I've got it. Okay, been there. I've got 2 separate worlds that we're dealing with here. I've tested a lot of stuff. I'm not paid by anybody. I haven't got a cent from anybody that I've mentioned today. This is just stuff that I like, that I believe in, that I trust. Okay, this Streamlight right here, a lot of people don't like Streamlight because it's not the best, and it's not the best that you can buy. They didn't win the military contract by just an nth, okay? But as far as a shotgun light goes, that's it. It's rechargeable, and all you gotta do is click a button on the back of it, and then the entire world is lit up wherever you point that gun.